Hi everyone. Well, this is going to be your last animal science lecture, and the topic is issues in animal agriculture. Honestly, I think you could take a whole class on that, and that would and you could get a master's degree. So there's a lot of issues about animal agriculture, and I don't know that the book does a great job. We're going to go through it. Probably going to take 2 slideshows though. So, from the standpoint of a livestock producer, livestock industry, I will tell you this. A lot of you, you're majoring in animal science and you may be not sure exactly where you're going to end up. Well, I would say one of the things that we're seeing in animal agriculture today is a closer and closer relationship between the public wanting to know where their food comes from and, livestock producers having to answer questions. And maybe that's a place where, there might be jobs for you. So when we talk about decision making in the livestock industry, a livestock producer like a cattleman or a sheep producer, a hog producer has to be aware of a lot of factors, not just how to produce hogs. That's probably their least important thing. Just like a dairyman, the actual production of milk from the cow is probably the easiest part of their job. The hardest part are all of these. Remember, in order for animal agriculture to exist, it has to be profitable. And some people find that offensive, but that's not how the world works. You have to be able to make a profit in the dairy industry in order to maintain a dairy. So profitability and balancing the cost of inputs, how you manage your livestock to make it efficient and profitable. That is an important aspect of livestock production. Managing and conserving resources. More and more regulations are in place on livestock producers, and a lot of times big producers actually, will hire college graduates in animal science to do conservation plans and come up with sustainability plans. So that is a big deal in animal agriculture today. And then definitely, the idea that a farmer, and this is part of the reason why people stay in farming, I think, is because, you're producing a viable product. I think you saw that in one of the videos I showed you. Something that is going to, put food on people's plates. And the animal agriculture industry, of course, provides jobs and provides, opportunities for community resources, I guess, and employment. And then, of course, your set of ethics and values is important and sometimes has to be, thrown in there with all these other things like profitability, following government regulations, and, maintaining employment. So all of those things fall in together when it comes to producing livestock, not having a pet. It's different. A pet is different than raising livestock for a profit. I saw this picture when I went through the slideshow. I think that's a nice picture, but it's an unrealistic picture. Obviously, this guy is having a good talk with his deer there, but it doesn't reflect animal welfare. It reflects someone who has a single animal, and that is more like a pet, a companion animal. That doesn't reflect true animal agriculture. Same with this, although I think this is where a lot of animal agriculture and love for animals comes from, and that is in the show ring. We used to anyway, before COVID, did a lot of livestock shows, animal jackpots, Project Animal Sales. Some of you in class, I know for a fact, because I know some of you, have been showing livestock for many years, and that definitely teaches you responsibility, animal husbandry skills, and that is really important. You might not grow up to be a hog producer, but at least you have some knowledge of what it takes to raise a hog from start to finish. So let's talk about some topics in this chapter. One of the topics is the idea of animal exploitation. So that would have a negative connotation. And animal exploitation deals with the idea that animals are just available for humans to use or even abuse. That animals are property, which they are, but more that you have ultimate control over them. And the picture of this that comes to mind is somebody who has 23 horses on their place and buys one bale of hay a week, and all the horses on their place and buys one bale of hay a week, and all the horses are skinny and malnourished, but that person is not going to give them up because they are his property. And I've seen that in more than one situation. Animal exploitation advocates or conducts activities with animals that are illegal, such as dogfighting or cockfighting. And a lot of animal exploitation involves pain or death of animals for entertainment purposes. And I think sometimes that the concept of animal exploitation is exaggerated. And since I'm the teacher, I can just tell you what I think. And sometimes people think that, racehorses have a terrible life. I don't believe that is true at all. So they're opposed to, they feel that racing horses is, exploitive to horses. That even riding a horse is exploitation because you're making the animal do what you want. That is not the case. Animal exploitation is when animals are, abused for the gain of the owner. And that is examples like dogfighting or cockfighting. Those are two good examples of animal exploitation. Animal use is kind of where most of us stand. So the idea here is that you are not opposed to using animals for food production, hunting, fishing, rodeos, zoos, equestrian events, things like that. So the animals can be used. It's not inhumane to ride a horse in a rodeo or to rope a calf or to, do a horse race or a 3-day eventing. And the animals in zoos are not, abused even though they are in some sort of confinement. So I think that's a majority of the population. Remember that most animal production facilities have specific guidelines for their care and handling. And that is becoming more and more of an issue today as companies like Costco and big box stores and grocery stores want animal audits to ensure that animals are responsibly and humanely cared for. And then, of course, another aspect of animal use involves the fact of using animals for food. And most people would agree that the harvesting of animals for food should be as humane and painless as possible. And California has, and there are federal laws that prevent suffering for animals when they're going to be harvested for food. And that is California's Humane Slaughter Law, which was passed back in the 1960s to make sure that animals had to be stunned prior to being slaughtered for food. Animal control would be something you would think about with, the dog catcher. So animal control, it basically enforces laws and ordinance and regulations affecting animals. That's the person who comes and knocks on the door of the person I mentioned earlier who has 23 horses and feeds them one bale of hay a week. That's not enough hay for a horse, by the way. That's not enough hay for one horse. So they're the first line defenders of animals. And oftentimes they witness suffering and abuse at the hands of people they're ignorant. They don't even know. They don't know that it's not good to have, 32 dogs inside your house and your house is filled with dog feces and the dogs have fleas and the house is overrun with vermin. That's what animal control enforces that. Animal control, basically, if animals are not adopted, oftentimes they are euthanized. In California, in many states, we have no euthanasia, shelters, which is fine. That's a lucky dog that goes there. And animal control advocates widespread spay-neutering programs, which I think most people agree with. Animal rights is the idea that animals have intrinsic rights and they're compared to human rights. I think people who advocate animal rights really have never really raised animals. They've never produced livestock. I've encountered many animal rights activists. My experience with them is most of them come straight out of the Bay Area, and they have never been on a farm. They have never fed animals every single day, 365 days a year, 2 to 3 times a day. But they believe that me, as a livestock producer, is automatically an inhumane person that tortures animals on a regular basis. So I don't like animal rights activists. I'll be the first one to tell you. They believe that animals should not be eaten, captured, used for sport or research. Most of them have zero understanding of the things that I taught you in this class. And that is that you couldn't survive a day without the use of animals for research or for food or all the intrinsic things that you take for granted every single day. So that is why I don't understand the attention that animal activism gets. I get the passion for animals. I understand that. I'm passionate about animals. But the idea that animals should be banned from all types of use by humans is ridiculous. Animal activists, animal rights activists oftentimes feel that it's their business and their right to go onto your property, me as a farmer or an animal producer, and save the animals, which usually entails causing more damage than it does any tiny bit of help. I have friends in the poultry industry who regularly, towards the Bay Area, over in Santa Rosa area, have animal rights activists break into their poultry facilities to quote unquote save the chickens, and they usually damage, kill, cause injury to more animals than they quote unquote save, because they have no understanding of poultry production. They just think what they see is wrong. They are anti-agriculture, which, I don't know what they eat, because everyone I know eats food. So maybe you're eating something from outer space or something, then you can afford to be anti-agriculture. Otherwise, don't talk with your mouth full, because agriculture is what puts food on everyone's plates, even a vegan, even a vegetarian, even somebody who doesn't advocate eating animals. You still rely on agriculture, and you still rely on animal agriculture. And a lot of animal rights activists really support illegal measures, as I said, like trespassing and violence directly as a means to their goals of quote unquote setting animals free. This slide is really good. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on it, but I'm going to ask you some questions on it, and they might be quiz questions. So it talks about each species and the welfare concerns relative to these animals. Unfortunately, I think some of these issues have been addressed very well. For example, in poultry, we do not debeak chickens. That is you can tell this book was written by a cattleman. Poultry are beak trimmed, day old at the hatchery, and then they are never trimmed again. Housing cages, we do not force molt laying hens anymore. In fact, that just isn't done anymore. We have better ways of producing poultry. So I'll let you look over these, and those are things you should be aware of for your quiz. So you might want to remember that, table 23.8. So what are the realities? A couple of things. I don't know if I might get through chickens, but I'll probably have to do another presentation for the next one. A lot of animal activism, animal rights activists are anti-poultry. You have to remember something about chickens. They are a gregarious animal. They like to be together. I know that. I've raised chickens for the last 30 years, and I know a lot about chickens, more than just about more than any animal activist. Poultry are the most consumed protein in the world, and they're very efficient feed converters, the most efficient feed converters. Poultry are typically raised in confinement, and that means a lot of them in a small area. And the reason why that is done is what I said earlier. You have to measure profitability, sustainability, and animal welfare. That all goes together. So when we talk about confinement production of chickens, a lot of people say, I think it's so inhumane how chickens are raised, but they don't even know how chickens are raised. In California, we have had more laws to take care of chickens, I think, than we do taking care of our own humans in the form of homeless people. So in California, because of Prop 2 and then another proposition that passed recently, you can't keep chickens in cages. All chickens are cage-free in California. So if you're bragging that, you only consume free-range chickens, it's kind of interesting, because most chickens are not kept in cages in California. I think you need to back up a slide, because I think I skipped over animal welfare. So I'll start there on the next one. Okay, I'm going to close out of this one, and I'll see you in a little bit on the next slide presentation.